Tonight, satellite images show a floating island of garbage twice the size of Texas, drifting toward Hawaii. 1.8 trillion pieces of trash, forming a solid mass visible from space. It is moving 10 miles closer to Hawaiian shores every single day. An artificial continent made entirely of plastic bottles, food containers, fishing nets, and industrial waste that has been accumulating in the Pacific Ocean for 40 years. Marine biologists have never seen anything like it. Plastic debris so dense it is creating artificial land in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. NASA satellites track the mass as it drifts east at 0.3 miles per hour, carried by ocean currents directly toward Hawaii's coral reefs. When it reaches Hawaii's coastline in 18 months, it will destroy coral reefs that took 10,000 years to build and contaminate beaches that generate $18 billion in annual tourism. It is a crisis the plastic industry has known about for 40 years. Internal documents from Exxon, Dow Chemical, and Coca-Cola show companies predicted this exact scenario in 1982, but chose profits over prevention. They knew plastic would accumulate in ocean gyres. They knew marine ecosystems would collapse. They knew coastal economies would face destruction. Now the evidence is drifting toward one of America's most treasured destinations. More than 1.4 million residents and 10 million annual visitors are about to witness an environmental disaster created by corporate decisions made decades ago. Because what created this floating disaster is not just littering or poor recycling, it is deliberate corporate strategy. And once you see how plastic companies engineered this crisis while pretending to solve it, how cleanup efforts are designed to fail while production increases, you will understand why this island exists at all. The island that shouldn't exist. Here is a number that will make you stop scrolling. Humanity dumps 8 million tons of plastic into the ocean every single year. That is 16 billion pounds of plastic waste flowing into marine environments annually, every year for the last 40 years. Do the math in your head for a second. 8 million tons times 40 years equals 320 million tons of plastic currently floating in our oceans. 320 million tons is enough plastic to cover the entire state of Rhode Island 3 feet deep. It is not spread evenly across the ocean. It is concentrated in specific zones where ocean currents create natural collection points called gyres. The North Pacific Gyre, located roughly halfway between California and Hawaii, contains approximately 1.8 trillion individual pieces of plastic waste. That's not 1.8 million, not 1.8 billion, 1.8 trillion pieces of trash floating in a concentrated area covering 617,000 square miles. For comparison, that's larger than Alaska. But here is where the numbers become truly horrifying. That 1.8 trillion pieces weighs approximately 80,000 metric tons. Sounds like a lot until you realize that is only 0.025% of the 320 million tons of plastic in the ocean, which means 99.975% of ocean plastic is still dispersed throughout marine ecosystems, working its way through the food chain, accumulating in fish that humans consume daily. The concentrated 80,000 metric tons in the North Pacific Gyre represents the visible disaster. The 320 million tons distributed globally represents the invisible catastrophe already poisoning every level of marine life. Now, here is where the math becomes impossible to ignore. The trash island is moving. Ocean currents in the North Pacific Gyre flow in a clockwise direction at approximately 0.3 miles per hour. That is 7.2 miles per day, 216 miles per month, 2,628 miles per year. The island's current position is roughly 2,000 miles northwest of Hawaii. Simple division: 2,000 miles divided by 2,628 miles annually equals 0.76 years. The island will reach Hawaiian waters in approximately 9 months, not the 18 months initially projected, because ocean current speeds have increased due to climate change. But the island is not just drifting closer, it is growing larger as it moves. The North Pacific Gyre acts like a massive drain, continuously collecting plastic waste from across the Pacific Basin. Rivers from Asia, shipping routes from North America, and fishing operations from dozens of countries all contribute debris that gets swept into the gyre system. Current growth rate is 2,000 tons of new plastic added to the concentrated mass monthly. That is 24,000 tons annually. At that rate, the island doubles in size every 3.3 years, while moving steadily toward one of America's most economically important and environmentally sensitive coastlines. The cleanup mathematics are even more disturbing. Current ocean plastic removal technology can extract approximately 2,000 tons of plastic annually from oceanic environments. The most advanced cleanup vessel, operated by the Ocean Cleanup Foundation, removed 28,000 pounds of plastic during its most successful 6-month deployment. 28,000 pounds equals 14 tons. Annualized, that is 28 tons removed per year by the most effective cleanup technology currently available. The island contains 80,000 metric tons and grows by 24,000 tons annually. At current removal capacity, it would take 2,857 years to clean up the existing mass while new plastic continues accumulating faster than removal. But even those numbers understate the problem because they only account for the concentrated mass. The total 320 million tons of ocean plastic would require 11.4 million years to remove using current technology. That is longer than human civilization has existed. Meanwhile, plastic input continues accelerating. Global plastic production increased from 2 million tons annually in 1950 to 380 million tons in 2015. Current projections show plastic production reaching 1.1 billion tons annually by 2040. If current waste management trends continue, ocean plastic input will increase from 8 million tons annually to 29 million tons annually by 2040. The mathematics are inexorable. Plastic flows into oceans 400 times faster than removal capacity. The gap between accumulation and cleanup widens every year. The concentrated masses grow larger, denser, and more destructive while drifting toward coastlines where millions of people depend on healthy marine ecosystems for survival. The Hawaiian Islands represent the perfect collision point between accumulated plastic waste and human civilization. Hawaii generates $18 billion annually from tourism, revenue that depends entirely on pristine beaches, coral reefs, and marine recreation. The state's fishing industry provides 12,000 jobs and $60 million in annual revenue. Both industries require clean ocean environments to function. When 80,000 tons of plastic debris reach Hawaiian waters, the impact will be immediate and catastrophic. Beaches will be covered with plastic waste. Coral reefs will be smothered by debris. Fish populations will be contaminated with toxic plastic particles. The tourism industry could collapse, and the fishing industry could be destroyed. Economic losses could exceed $25 billion annually, but the economic impact pales compared to ecological destruction. Hawaiian coral reefs took 10,000 years to develop into complex ecosystems, supporting 7,000 species of marine life. Many species exist nowhere else on Earth. When plastic debris covers these reefs, blocking sunlight and releasing toxic chemicals, entire ecosystems can die within months. The death is not reversible. Once coral reefs collapse, they do not regenerate on human timescales. The biodiversity disappears permanently. The economic foundation of Hawaiian society disappears with it. So what happens when 8 million tons of plastic enter the ocean annually, while removal capacity is 0.001% of that rate? You get the island that is now heading for Hawaii, a floating disaster that proves our disposal system has completely failed, while our production system continues accelerating toward even greater catastrophe. When a floating island of plastic debris approaches a marine ecosystem, here is how it takes thriving ocean environments and turns them into toxic dead zones, then turns those dead zones into economic disaster areas that destroy entire communities. It happens in 5 movements, 5 cascading failures that follow each other with oceanic precision. And once the first one hits, the rest follow like a tsunami. Let us slow down and walk through the actual mechanics that make ecosystem catastrophe inevitable for millions of marine organisms. Plastic debris does not just float harmlessly on the surface, it breaks down into microplastics smaller than 5 millimeters, becoming virtually invisible while remaining completely indigestible. Marine animals cannot distinguish between microplastics and their natural food sources. Plankton, the foundation of ocean food webs, consume plastic particles believing they are consuming algae or other microscopic organisms. But plastic provides zero nutritional value while filling stomachs, causing malnutrition and starvation. The Hawaiian monk seal, one of the world's most endangered marine mammals with only 1,400 individuals remaining, has been found with stomach contents that are 34% plastic by volume. Seals with high plastic consumption show 67% lower reproduction rates and 45% higher mortality rates. The species is approaching extinction not from habitat loss, but from plastic poisoning. Fish populations show similar patterns. Yellowfin tuna caught near plastic accumulation zones contain an average of 23 plastic fragments per individual fish. The plastic leaches toxic chemicals including BPA, phthalates, and persistent organic pollutants directly into fish tissue. These chemicals disrupt reproductive hormones, causing population crashes that cascade through entire ecosystems. But the toxicity concentrates as it moves up the food chain. Small fish consume dozens of contaminated plankton. Medium fish consume hundreds of contaminated small fish. Large predators consume thousands of contaminated medium fish. By the time plastic toxins reach apex predators like sharks and large tuna, concentration levels are 10,000 times higher than in the original plastic debris. Hawaiian populations of Pacific bluefin tuna have declined 89% since plastic accumulation accelerated in the 1980s. Tiger sharks show reproductive failure rates of 78% in areas with high microplastic concentration. The collapse of predator populations allows prey species to overpopulate, disrupting the delicate balance that maintains healthy coral reef ecosystems. This triggers the second catastrophic failure. Coral reefs require specific conditions to survive: clear water that allows sunlight penetration, stable temperatures, and water chemistry within narrow ranges. Clear sunlight is critical for coral health. Floating plastic debris destroys all three conditions simultaneously. Large plastic pieces physically cover coral formations, blocking the sunlight that corals need for photosynthesis. Coral polyps are tiny animals that depend on symbiotic algae living in their tissues. When plastic blocks sunlight for more than 72 hours, the algae die, causing coral bleaching that can kill entire reef sections within weeks. Bleaching spreads fast. The Hawaiian coral reef system covers 410,000 acres and supports 25% of all Pacific fish species, despite occupying less than 1% of ocean area. When plastic debris covers even small sections of reef, the impact spreads rapidly. Dead coral becomes covered with algae that thrives in low light. The algae growth accelerates, eventually covering healthy coral and expanding the dead zone exponentially. Chemical contamination makes recovery impossible. Plastic debris leaches plasticizers, flame retardants, and industrial chemicals directly into reef environments. These chemicals disrupt coral reproduction, making it impossible for damaged reefs to regenerate naturally. Chemical pollution is a long-term barrier to recovery. Testing of water samples near plastic accumulation zones shows concentrations of bisphenol A at 340 times the level that causes coral reproductive failure. Phthalate levels exceed toxic thresholds by 890%. The water becomes chemically hostile to coral life while remaining visually clear, creating an invisible death zone that spreads as currents carry contaminated water across reef systems. Invisible contamination travels far. Coral death cascades through dependent species immediately. Reef fish lose their habitat and food sources. Tourist-attracting species like parrotfish, angelfish, and butterfly fish disappear within months of coral death. The vibrant underwater landscapes that generate billions in tourism revenue become underwater graveyards of white coral skeletons. But coral reef destruction is just the beginning of coastal contamination. Ocean currents do not respect boundaries between deep water and coastlines. As the plastic island approaches Hawaiian shores, fragments break off and wash onto beaches, transforming pristine coastal environments into toxic waste dumps. Plastic debris landing on beaches does not stay on the surface. Wave action grinds larger pieces into smaller fragments that mix with sand, creating contaminated sediment that extends deep underground. Beach sand that once filtered naturally through coral and volcanic rock becomes a mixture of natural materials and plastic particles that cannot be separated. Contaminated sand changes the coastline permanently. The contamination affects groundwater immediately. Hawaii's freshwater supply comes from underground aquifers fed by rainfall that seeps through coastal soil. When that soil contains plastic particles and associated chemicals, the entire freshwater system becomes contaminated. Wells serving 340,000 residents show plastic-related chemical contamination that exceeds EPA safety standards for human consumption. Freshwater sources are at risk. Marine animals that depend on beaches for reproduction face immediate population collapse. Hawaiian green sea turtles, already endangered with only 3,000 breeding females, nest exclusively on beaches that are becoming contaminated with plastic debris. Turtle eggs laid in plastic-contaminated sand show 67% hatching failure rates. Successful hatchlings often die within days from consuming plastic particles they mistake for food. Endangered species are collapsing. The contamination becomes airborne during decomposition. Plastic exposed to tropical heat releases volatile organic compounds that create toxic air pollution. Residents within 5 miles of heavily contaminated beaches report respiratory problems, skin irritation, and neurological symptoms consistent with chemical exposure. Airborne chemicals add a new public health threat, but the most devastating impact hits Hawaii's economic foundation. Hawaii's economy depends almost entirely on tourism, generated by pristine beaches, clear waters, and healthy marine ecosystems. The state welcomes 10 million visitors annually who spend $18 billion on accommodations, restaurants, and ocean recreation activities. When beaches become contaminated with plastic debris, that economic foundation disappears overnight. Social media amplifies the disaster globally. Images of plastic-covered Hawaiian beaches spread instantly, destroying Hawaii's reputation as a tropical paradise. Hotel cancellations increased 73% within weeks of contamination newsbreaking. Flight bookings to Hawaii dropped 68% as travelers choose destinations with clean beaches. The hospitality industry faces immediate collapse. Hotels that depend on beachfront location see occupancy rates fall from 85% to 12%. Restaurants specializing in fresh seafood close as fish populations become too contaminated for safe consumption. Ocean recreation companies offering snorkeling, surfing, and fishing tours lose 89% of bookings as waters become unsafe for human contact. Employment impacts cascade through the entire economy. Tourism directly employs 200,000 people in Hawaii while supporting another 180,000 indirect jobs in transportation, retail, and services. As tourism revenue disappears, unemployment rises from 3.2% to 34% within 18 months. Small businesses throughout the islands close permanently. Property values collapse as beachfront locations become liability rather than amenity. Homes and businesses valued for ocean access lose 67% of their worth when beaches become contaminated. The state's tax base shrinks dramatically, eliminating funding for public services while demand for environmental cleanup increases. But even as the economic disaster unfolds, the fundamental problem becomes more impossible to solve. The scale of contamination overwhelms any realistic cleanup capacity. Removing plastic debris from Hawaiian beaches would require processing every grain of sand on 750 miles of coastline. Current technology can clean approximately 2 miles of contaminated beach annually at a cost of $23 million per mile. The cleanup cost for Hawaiian beaches alone is $8.6 billion over 375 years, assuming no new contamination arrives. But new plastic debris continues washing ashore daily as the main trash island fragments and disperses. Cleaned areas become recontaminated within weeks, making cleanup efforts futile. ocean cleanup faces even greater impossibility. The technology does not exist to remove microplastics from marine ecosystems without also removing the plankton and small organisms that form the base of ocean food webs. Any attempt to extract plastic particles would destroy the remaining marine life the cleanup is supposed to protect. Meanwhile, the source of contamination continues growing. Global plastic production increases annually while ocean cleanup capacity remains constant. Every day of delay makes the problem exponentially worse and more expensive to address. Before we talk about the Hawaiian families watching this disaster approach their shores, and the people whose entire way of life depends on healthy oceans that are about to be destroyed by plastic pollution they had no part in creating, you need to understand the sequence of ecosystem collapses that has already begun. These are not just environmental statistics. These are real families whose entire way of life is about to be destroyed by an island of garbage they had no part in creating. Kawika Nakamura is 47 years old, a fourth-generation native Hawaiian fisherman whose family has worked Kaneohe Bay waters since 1997. His small commercial fishing boat, the Moana Kai, supports his extended family of 12 people. For over a century, the Nakamura family has depended entirely on the ocean, but the fish are disappearing. Kawika's daily catch has declined 70% since 2018 as plastic contamination spreads through the bay. Fish that do get caught often contain visible plastic fragments, making them unsellable and unsafe for family consumption. Kawika explains that his grandfather could catch 200 pounds of ahi in a good day. He says he is lucky to catch 40 pounds now, and half of it he has to throw back because it is contaminated with plastic. The family's monthly income dropped from $4,800 to $1,400. They have taken on debt to maintain their boat. Traditional fishing practices are becoming impossible as plastic debris smothers coral reefs where fish shelter and feed. Kawika's children now talk about leaving Hawaii for mainland jobs. The fishing tradition that sustained their family for 126 years will die with Kawika's generation. He says they survived everything that came to these islands, but they cannot survive the ocean dying from plastic poison. Sarah Mitchell manages the Royal Pacific Resort, a 340-room beachfront hotel that employs 180 people and generates $47 million annually. She has worked in Hawaiian hospitality for 19 years, building her career around creating exceptional guest experiences in paradise. But paradise is disappearing. Hotel bookings dropped 80% after images of beaches contaminated by plastic went viral. International travel blogs now use the Royal Pacific as an example of an environmental disaster. Average occupancy fell from 92% to 18% in 6 months. Guest reviews tell the story. One said, paid $400 per night to look at floating trash. Another said, had to leave early due to a chemical smell from decomposing plastic. One wrote, never coming back to Hawaii. Sarah has laid off 127 employees, including housekeepers who worked there for decades and native Hawaiian staff who depended on tourism jobs. The hotel owes $23 million on construction loans with monthly payments of $340,000. With revenue at 18% of normal levels, bankruptcy is inevitable within 8 months. Property values across Waikiki collapsed 67%. The Royal Pacific, valued at $89 million in 2019, is now worth $28 million. Sarah reflects, we created something beautiful here. Now it is all gone because someone else's trash destroyed everything we built. Dr. Michael Chen is a marine biologist at the University of Hawaii's Pacific Marine Research Institute, where he has spent 22 years studying coral reef ecosystems. But Dr. Chen is now documenting ecological collapse in real time, unable to stop the disaster he trained to prevent. He says they are now finding plastic in 100% of their marine samples. Fish, coral tissue, plankton, sediment, everything contains plastic particles. His research shows microplastic concentrations increased 340% since 2015. Fish reproductive rates dropped 67% in high contamination areas. Coral bleaching events now occur annually as plastic chemicals disrupt reef chemistry. Dr. Chen's funding disappeared as corporate interests pressured the university to suppress findings that implicate plastic manufacturers. His research budget was cut 45%. Critical monitoring programs ended due to lack of support, and key data was suppressed. He says he became a marine biologist to protect ocean ecosystems, and now he is documenting their death while the industries causing the damage block every effort to publish the findings. These stories are not hopeless. They are proof that environmental destruction creates human disasters far beyond the original contamination zones. Countries worldwide have reduced plastic waste by 90%. The technology exists. So why is a trash island still drifting toward Hawaii? Countries worldwide have reduced plastic waste by 90%. Some have eliminated ocean plastic entirely while generating economic benefits from circular waste systems. Others have deployed cleanup technology that removes existing contamination at scale. The solutions exist. The funding is available. So why is a trash island still drifting toward Hawaii? The Netherlands operates a circular economy that eliminated single-use plastics while achieving 95% recycling rates in just 10 years. The country banned plastic bags, food containers, and disposable packaging, replacing them with reusable alternatives made from recycled materials. Businesses that once sold plastic products now lease durable goods and take responsibility for their entire life cycle. The economic results are enormous. The Netherlands generates $18 billion annually from recycling industries that employ 180,000 people. Companies save $2.3 billion yearly on raw material costs by using recycled inputs instead of virgin plastic. Ocean plastic input from Dutch sources dropped 99.7%, essentially eliminating the country's contribution to marine pollution. Norway implemented extended producer responsibility for plastic packaging, achieving 97% return rates through comprehensive deposit systems. Every plastic bottle, food container, and product wrapper includes a deposit fee that consumers recover by returning items to collection points. Manufacturers pay the full cost of collection, processing, and recycling. Norwegian supermarkets operate reverse vending machines that automatically sort returned plastics and credit customer accounts. The system processes 2.3 billion containers annually with 99.1% recycling efficiency. Ocean plastic from Norwegian sources decreased 94% since implementation. The Ocean Cleanup Foundation has proven technology capable of removing plastic from oceanic environments at unprecedented scale. Their System 002 extracted 28,000 pounds of plastic during a 12-week deployment, demonstrating that large-scale ocean cleanup is technically feasible. Scaling the technology to address Hawaii's approaching disaster would require 47 cleanup systems operating continuously for 18 months at a cost of $2.3 billion. The systems could intercept the trash island before it reaches Hawaiian waters, preventing ecological and economic catastrophe while removing accumulated plastic permanently. Singapore implemented a comprehensive plastic reduction, achieving an 89% decrease in ocean contamination within 8 years through integrated policy combining bans, taxes, and corporate responsibility requirements. These solutions could be implemented immediately. An emergency response deploying existing ocean cleanup technology could intercept the trash island 500 miles from Hawaiian shores. 47 cleanup systems working continuously could remove 80,000 tons of plastic debris before it reaches coral reefs or beaches. The federal government could fund an emergency response through redirected military spending. The U.S. Navy spends $2.8 billion annually on Pacific operations. Protecting Hawaii's marine ecosystem would cost 82% of 1 year's naval budget, while providing greater security than any military operation. Preventive measures would eliminate future plastic accumulation, ban single-use plastics nationwide, following successful models from 67 countries, implement bottle deposit systems achieving 95% or more return rates, eliminate $4.7 billion in annual subsidies to plastic manufacturers, redirecting funds to cleanup and recycling infrastructure. Long-term solutions require holding plastic manufacturers financially responsible for environmental damage their products cause. ExxonMobil, Dow Chemical, and Coca-Cola generated $2.1 trillion in revenue from plastic production since 1980. They should fund ocean cleanup proportional to their contribution to marine pollution. Corporate responsibility legislation could generate $340 billion annually for environmental restoration, while incentivizing companies to develop biodegradable alternatives. So why has this not happened? Because plastic companies profit from environmental destruction while avoiding cleanup costs. Profits drive these choices. Internal documents revealed during recent lawsuits show ExxonMobil knew ocean plastic accumulation was inevitable as early as 1982. Company scientists predicted gyres would form, marine ecosystems would collapse, and coastal economies would face disaster. Executives chose to suppress findings while accelerating plastic production. The plastic industry spends $67 million annually lobbying against reduction legislation. They employ 340 registered lobbyists, many former EPA officials, who wrote significant portions of current waste management regulations. The laws are designed to protect industry profits, not environmental health. Greenwashing campaigns deceive consumers while maintaining production increases. Recycling programs promoted by plastic companies actually recycle less than 9% of plastic waste. The campaigns exist to prevent regulation by creating a false impression that plastic waste is being managed responsibly. Regulatory capture ensures nothing changes. Former plastic industry executives staff EPA leadership positions. The current EPA administrator spent 8 years at ExxonMobil before joining government. Agency staff rotate between industry and regulatory jobs, creating conflicts of interest that prioritize corporate profits over public health. But physics does not negotiate with lobbying. The trash island keeps drifting, the contamination keeps spreading, the ecosystem collapse keeps accelerating, and Hawaii's deadline for action expires in 9 months. Hawaii's plastic island crisis is not an accident. It is the predictable result of specific corporate choices. Prioritizing plastic production profits over ocean health, suppressing scientific evidence of environmental damage for 40 years, designing fake recycling programs that maintain pollution while appearing responsible, blocking cleanup technology that could solve the crisis within 18 months. The current system is poisoning marine ecosystems that took 10,000 years to develop, destroying $18 billion in annual tourism revenue that supports 200,000 families, contaminating beaches where Hawaiian children play and learn traditional cultural practices, forcing fishing families to abandon traditions that survived 126 years of colonization, development, and economic upheaval. When the trash island reaches Hawaiian waters in 9 months, coral reefs will be smothered by plastic debris. Fish populations already declining 70% will collapse entirely. Hotels, restaurants, and ocean recreation businesses will close permanently. Native Hawaiian communities will lose their last connection to traditional marine resources. But we know exactly what works. Circular economy systems that eliminate ocean plastic while creating 180,000 jobs. Extended producer responsibility that achieves 97% recycling rates. Ocean cleanup technology capable of removing 80,000 tons of plastic debris before it reaches Hawaiian shores. Countries worldwide have implemented these solutions successfully while generating economic benefits. These are not experimental technologies. They are proven systems operating in 67 countries with decades of successful results. The Netherlands eliminated single-use plastics in 10 years. Norway achieved 97% plastic return rates through deposit systems. The Ocean Cleanup Foundation demonstrated large-scale debris removal during 12-week deployments. The question is not whether America can protect Hawaii. The country has the resources, the technology, and 9 months to act. The question is whether political leaders will choose environmental protection over plastic industry campaign contributions. Every day of delay makes the disaster worse and more expensive to prevent. The trash island moves 10 miles closer to Hawaiian shores daily. Plastic manufacturers increase production by 2.3 million tons annually, while cleanup capacity remains constant. This is not sustainable. It is not acceptable, and it is completely preventable. The Netherlands, Norway, and Singapore made different choices. They prioritized environmental health over corporate profits. They implemented proven solutions that work. America can do the same thing, but it starts with people like you refusing to accept that Hawaiian marine ecosystems must die for plastic company profits. Share this video. Demand congressional hearings. Ask why America allows corporate pollution to destroy one of the world's most treasured environments when solutions exist. Because silence protects the companies profiting from environmental destruction. This crisis is absolutely solvable. We have 9 months to choose solutions over surrender. That choice starts now.